Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101. As always, presented by our good friends over at ScentLok. ScentLok is in the middle of dropping some new products. They have come out with some products for the saddle hunter. That's a big deal. I'm not much into it. I haven't got into it yet. Not saying I won't, but I would highly recommend you, if you're a saddle hunter, ScentLok is developing an all-around toolkit for bow hunters, and that is just a piece of it. So I would highly recommend you to go check out ScentLok and their new products, especially if you're a saddle hunter. I've got a special guest. I don't think I've ever had, I maybe shouldn't say that. You might be one of the only doctors I've ever had on the podcast before.
Okay, that's cool.
I can't remember. And that's why I don't want to speak out of turn and somebody else reach out and be like, I'm a doctor, you butthead, and be like, oh, my bad. So if not the only, one of the very few doctors I've ever had on the podcast, I've got Dr. Preston Ward from Mountain Physio. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Dylan, how are you?
Wonderful. Now, you are there in the Salt Lake area, correct?
I am, yeah.
Now, what do you specialize in before we jump in?
Yeah, so my specialty is in orthopedics. I went to the University of Utah, did my undergraduate and then my graduate degree, my doctorate of physical therapy there, and then did a residency at the VA and at the university level, and then became board certified in orthopedics. So an orthopedic specialist, so pretty much everything from the head to the toes, musculoskeletal orthopedic, and then found my niche in archery, in the archery community. There wasn't a physical therapist that specialized in just archers and bow hunters, and so I said, 4 years ago, I said that should be me, and I started up my practice. So
now, when I heard about this, when I met you, saw you, found you, I got incredibly excited, and I'll tell you why. About 2 years ago, I met a gentleman by the name of Harv Ebers, and Harv is what I consider to be a living legend. He's well into his 80s, if not pushing his 90s. One of the founding members of Pope and Young. He was inducted into the Pope and Young Hall of Fame. Personal friends with Fred Bear. Just a phenomenal guy. And I remember asking him the first time I met him, I was showing up to his house for him to teach me how to shoot a recurve. And I remember asking him, so do you still get to hunt? And he looked at me like I was an idiot. And he's like, dude, I shot a doe. I was at his house. He's like, I shot a doe back there 2 nights ago. And I'm like, awesome. Very good. And so ever since then, I've really wanted to put together this plan or program, or at least tips and tricks, so I can hunt like Harv. And what I mean by that is well into my 90s. I'm not the kind of guy that cares to be as fit as humanly possible. I don't really care to be as big as possible. I don't really care to be as fast as possible. I just want to be able to hunt for a long time. And that's Harv. He still goes out and chases animals in the mountains even. And so he's a stud. And so I've wanted to put together this plan of being able to just simply hunt as long as we can. Because, I've seen my dad. My dad was a college wrestler. And so he's got horrible shoulders, just beat his shoulders to death when he was young wrestling. And he's had to have 2 reconstructive surgeries now just so he could keep hunting. And I've seen that, and I'm like, I don't want to go through that. I want to be the guy who sets myself up so that I can hunt for a long period of time. And so when I met you, I saw you, I'm like, wait a minute, this guy does what I need. He prides himself in helping people stay healthy to hunt. And so that's what we want to do. And so real quick, I want you to talk about just kind of how you built this idea, of staying ready to hunt or staying healthy to hunt.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Dylan. I'd like to meet Harv one day, because I think I need to have like a picture of him up on the wall, because that's exactly what my mindset is I don't want people to be like, I only have, 5 more years left in me to hunt or to pull back this bow. My shoulders are worn. I've been doing construction my whole life or whatever it is, wrestler. And so how I really started this idea is I had just finished up graduate school, finished up my residency. I was actually up at a pro shop for my graduation present. Family went in on a new bow for me. So I got a new bow. I was ready to hunt, ready to go after this. And I was in a pro shop and some guy started complaining of a shoulder pain. And I'm thinking, man, I think what he was saying is he's like, yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can do. I'm just going to have surgery and then my bow hunting career will be over. And when I heard that, I was just like almost devastated. I'm like, how can you at 56 years old say your bow hunting career is over when for you, me, probably every listener on here, like bow hunting is seriously like our life, right? It's our passion. And so when I heard that, I was thinking there's no way. So I started just thinking to myself, doing some market research and found out there was no physical therapist specializing with archers and bow hunters. And so as a lifelong archer myself and done all sorts of things and now do stuff with USA Archery and, just kind of all over the map, worked with disabled hunters, worked with able-bodied hunters. I said, I've got the skills to be able to do the rehab and the prevention side of things. And that's what I'm hugely passionate about is, preventing injuries and rehabbing injuries so that people can hunt the rest of their life. And that's 100% my mission is, if you look on our website, like our mission is to keep people hunting in the mountains. I say, use the term, get mountain ready or, get mountain shaped, like just be ready for those physical challenges. And so anyways, that's kind of how it started. It's pretty cool. Pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've got big plans. I shouldn't say big plans, but I have these ideas of really developing a program that people can follow. A stretching program, a lifting program, a movement program, and maybe, and that's why I'm excited to have you here. You might shed some light, but maybe more of of stretching and movements are better than. Anyways, I'm excited to get to that, but I just Googled, how do I share my screen here? I did just Google, Harv. I don't know if you can see my screen there. So he was actually inducted into the Bow Hunters Hall of Fame and the Pope and Young Hall of Fame. And so, you can tell he's an older gentleman. But yeah, this was the night we inducted him into the Pope and Young Hall of Fame. Incredibly special. This is the picture you can put up on your wall there. That way you get both of us there. No, but it was incredible. I get asked all the time about my shot process and how to execute a shot process. And I actually just sent the link to this video to a friend of mine from Bowhunter Planet. But this is a video of him teaching me how to shoot a recurve. So if you've been wanting to dive into that, make sure and head over to Bear Archery's YouTube and you can find that there. Now, yeah, I've had this idea for a long time, just never really knew how to execute it. Most of my friends who are athletes or participating, they're strongmen. That's what they compete in, and so not necessarily longevity of hunting. So I'm excited. So if you were to just break down basic tips, like this is what I would do on the most basic level to stay mountain ready or even hunt ready. You might say, well, I'm a whitetail hunter, I don't care about the mountain. Just to stay hunt ready, be able to draw your bow back for a long period of time. What are some of those basic 101 tips you would give people?
Yeah, that's good. I would say it's really probably got to start with, we have some really clear guidelines and expectations in the physical fitness realm and everything. And so I would say, and to your point, as far as building up programs and stuff like that, that's what I do, right, is as a profession, as a living, is build up these programs for people to stay hunt ready or mountain ready. And we have some things in the work here too at Mountain Physio. I've hired a few people in Pennsylvania and other states as well to kind of start building up the practice as well. But anyway, so we have some cool things coming down the line as far as programs. But 101, tip 101, I would say really like get in your cardio. So seems maybe strange, but get in your cardio, just staying in shape that way. And it can be as simple as like 30 minutes of walking. It could be, but something to get your heart rate elevated, because as with hunting, that obviously happens a lot. And so just that cardiovascular exercise, aerobic exercise, walking, running, treadmill, biking, whatever it is, hiking, is getting that in. So that would be maybe tip one. And then it just kind of builds a good premise as far as blood flow and circulation to our bodies, even up into our shoulders. And then if we're thinking specifically archery for shoulders, I would say my number one recommendation, I'm going to grab it right here, honestly, would be like pick up some resistance bands, because you can do so much with them. And if you pick up some resistance bands, if I can untie this, they're simple exercises, but enough to like engage the back muscles for that shot process, the rhomboids, the deltoids, and then particularly the rotator cuffs. I'll say I see probably the most problems with the rotator cuff. Everyone hears that whenever they have a shoulder pain when they're shooting, they're like, oh shoot, my rotator cuff's bad. It's not always the case. It's usually not the case, excuse me. But the rotator cuff does get injured quite often. And so just keeping them healthy is the best thing. And so you can see motions here that I'm doing. I'll scoot back here. But if I'm sitting here and just pushing out, so engaging my back muscles as I'm kind of retracting my shoulders, and then also getting those rotator cuff muscles as I'm rotating out into external rotation. And so that's, really my suggestion would be get some cardio in, grab some of these exercise bands, do a handful of these exercises like this, a couple of sets of 15. And then lastly, I would say would be, to really warm up prior to shooting. Now, when we're younger, we probably don't need to do that as much. But as we age, if we're thinking about just longevity and keeping things healthy, it's probably wise to grab the bands. I was working with a patient just yesterday they're on a road trip up to Vegas, and then they're going to go up to the Total Archery Challenge and some different 3D events and stuff like that. And they're 65 some odd years old. And she's like, every day I get out, I shoot my bow. She just had a rotator cuff surgery, rotator cuff repair. She reached out to me and she's doing the band. She's like, every day, Preston, I do that. And then I go shoot and I feel so good. She's shooting 50, 60 arrows a day. So anyways, just a cool thing, but get the cardio in, grab the exercise bands, do a handful of motions to engage the rotator cuff in the back, and then do it, especially before shooting, if you can.
Now, before I get a whole bunch of hate mail, and Preston, you might hate me for this too. I don't know. Oh Lord, here it comes. CrossFit is not the way to go. Let me just say that.
Oh man, you're getting yourself into trouble right there.
It's not the way to go. There's a CrossFit gym right across from my house, and so I see them all the time. And you see them running, you see them doing these things, which is good. But almost every person you see, knee wraps, elbow wraps, icing down before or after. Like, I can't stress enough. Like, and it might be good to get in shape. And I'm not. If you're looking to get in shape, looking to lose a whole bunch of weight, absolutely do it for a few months to lose weight. But when it comes to longevity, how many CrossFit guys do you know that practice CrossFit for so long and now their knees suck, their ankles are roasted, their elbows are gone, their shoulders are bad, because everything is so high intensity and high impact. I'm a big proponent. All the cardio that I do is super low impact. because I don't want to bang up my knees and my legs, you name it. And so absolutely what you just said, I have a treadmill, and I have a Peloton. My wife has a Peloton, I should say, but all of my cardio are one of those two things: super low impact, putting on a pack and going out and finding a hill and walking up and down, just super low impact on my body. I'm not super sore afterwards, but I got my heart rate elevated. I burned calories. I got a sweat going. This morning, on the treadmill, I just walked for 30 minutes. It was at the incline of 12. And I walked for 30 minutes. The watch said I burned 320 calories. Did I? I don't know. But the watch said I burned 300 calories. I was drenched in sweat. All I did was walk. That's not going to mess me up in the long term. And I can do that all of my life and be fine. So I'm a big proponent. Again, if you are looking at CrossFit as a way, I need to lose 40 pounds, that is going to be a quick way to do it. And by all means, try it and do it. But for longevity, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. And I have a friend who is a pro athlete, and he did CrossFit back in the day, and it took him a lot just to build back to where he could successfully be an athlete again. And so
I'm gonna jump in here, Dylan, a little bit. I think
send the hate mail to Preston, not me.
Maybe spare you a little bit, but no, CrossFit it's intense, and that's good. And it can be as intense as you really kind of scale it. It's typically seen on the more intense side of things. But I'll say I have got nothing wrong with CrossFit. CrossFit is a really good, it's a functional training. So you see them, the lifting tires or doing some explosive movements, clean snatches. There's some things like the kipping pull-ups and stuff like that. You can see that could, over the long haul, really have some challenges on your shoulders if we're talking bow hunting and archery. And so I've got nothing wrong with CrossFit. I think it's good. I really have a lot of CrossFit athletes that come to me. That's why I guess maybe also it's a good thing as far as most CrossFitters will end up going to physical therapy at least sometime because they're trying to rehab something. It's a really intense exercise. I don't have anything wrong with it. But I do think, to your point, like being wise with certain motions and thinking like longevity of things, I wouldn't say that we have anything in the research. There was a really interesting, so this is kind of where I dive into my profession and kind of bring the research together and stuff like that. But interesting study done here at the University of Utah, that it was after someone starts CrossFit, usually about 3 weeks later, there was, for the majority of people, some sort of injury. Now, those are the people that are probably, jumping in 110%, we'll say. They're jumping in, and just over time, they're those tendons and the muscles, they kind of, burn out in those couple weeks, and you'll see an injury. Now, if we're talking long term, I wouldn't say that we have anything in the research right now to say CrossFit's it's a relatively, I guess, old way of practicing, but also kind of a new form of exercise that's, somewhat new. I wouldn't say we have anything in the long haul that says if you do CrossFit, you're only going to last, 4 or 5 years, even to the sense of running. So I do a lot with runners and obviously endurance athletes, hikers, backpackers, things like that, hunters. And even running, some people kind of have that misconception that running is going to mess up my knees. I'm going to be, have all this early arthritis. And that's not the case. There is some research out there, some studies that support maybe the people that are putting in, and I don't even know the numbers, but, they're doing the ultra, 100-mile marathons and things like that. And they're doing that. Maybe those guys and the people that are putting in hundreds or 200s of miles a week, maybe they have some arthritis in their joints and their knees. But the people that are just running recreationally, it's actually maybe even more protective of onset of arthritis, which is kind of an interesting dichotomy there, that you say, well, if I'm going to run too much, then maybe there's some arthritis. But if I don't run, enough and I'm just sedentary, then there's certainly some arthritis as well. So there's kind of this happy medium, and there's probably a big spectrum there. So probably with CrossFit as well, there's this pretty big spectrum of what's allowed and what's appropriate. But to your point, if we're thinking longevity, it's usually, I always like, I'm not, big and huge either, but definitely some banded resistance exercises and, keeping things, within the spectrum of 70 to 80% of your repetition max. So you're building some strength, and because strength loss happens as we age. But anyways, a lot to that.
Yeah. And that's one thing Harv said. I was like, so how do you do this, man? Like, and he said, I still resistance train every day. And in his basement, you can see a couple pictures of the basement there. There's hundreds of trophies everywhere and memorabilia of him and Fred Bear and all this cool stuff. But there's weights everywhere. Like, he just has weights spread out. He's like, I resistance train still because I'm an old man. I need to keep moving. I need to keep. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of resistance training. I like to keep stuff low impact. And maybe I'm a little bit more on the you just want to be fat and lazy side. Maybe I am, but again, my long-term goal is to not be 10% body fat, but my long-term goal is to be able to hunt when I'm 80. That's my goal. And so all of the training I do, if you've listened to the podcast for any amount of time, I had Joey Zatmary, who's a national strongman champion. He came down and we worked out together one day, and we went hunting and got his first deer. But he asked me for his channel on YouTube. He asked me, he said, so why do you hunt? And I said, simple reason. Or he said, why do you train? And I said, simple, I want to hunt. And he kind of looked at me funny, and I said, dude, listen. And I said, this is just my testimony. I said, but I got ready to go on my first out west mountain hunt, and I was way overweight. I was 222 pounds at 5'9". I mean, out of shape, fat. And I was like, I was getting ready to go on this hunt, and I knew I needed to lose some weight. And so I lost 30 pounds for the hunt, went out and hunted, and I still got my tail end whipped. And, growing up in an athletic, outdoorsy family, playing sports my whole life, I didn't like that. I didn't like getting my butt kicked by the mountain. And so I came back and continued to lose 20 pounds. So I lost about 50 pounds. And I just told him, I'm like, man, that's when I knew, like, if I want to hunt for a long time and be successful at it, I have to train. I have to stay in shape. I have to stay mobile. I have to practice carrying stuff up and down hills. I have to practice, developing those back muscles. And we did a video, and he showed us three exercises on how to build back muscles and get stronger for shooting. But we didn't really talk about how to prevent injury in shooting. And what I mean by that is, you see a lot of videos now. I can't even think of the guy. Archery Strong, is that right?
Christian, I believe.
Yeah. And then, even John Dudley's been doing some videos recently on how to prevent injury when shooting. And I know Tom Klum, who's another one of my recurve quote unquote coaches, is big on things to prevent injury when shooting. So what are your tips simply in a draw cycle? What do you see people doing that's going to injure shoulders? And what can we do to prevent that? Because I understand I'm maybe the exception, but I shoot every day. And I get to shoot a lot every day. I shoot probably 200 arrows a day on average. And so I really have to cognizantly, yeah, that's the right word, think about those things. So, because I'll notice, like, if my shoulder starts creeping up when I'm shooting, I'll notice, I'm like, man, I'm getting sore. This hurts, man. And then later that evening, I'm like, man, I must have been riding my shoulder up. So what are some things that you see guys doing in a draw cycle, and what can we do to prevent injury in our draw cycle?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I think I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think we see, and this is just an interesting conversation too, Dylan, in that hunting and archery in particular, I would say over the last 10 years has really become a lifestyle. So someone asked, like I asked you, what do you want to do? Or why do you train? I train so I can hunt. And we see that now. Like hunting is a lifestyle. It's 365 days a year. We're putting in the work. We're lifting weights every day. So I don't think you're necessarily maybe the minority, right? As far as, but I see, I mean, the most people that I see, I wouldn't say that. You and I shoot a lot as well. I try to shoot at least every day. And so I would say most people that I work with will shoot a few times a week. But then I also see a lot of injuries when people aren't shooting that frequently. Then they prepare for hunting season. The hunting season's okay, and they haven't shot. And then they get their arrows in and they're like, I got to shoot 200 a day. And then they have an injury, right? So anyways, there's that kind of spectrum there. But I do agree. And I think that's pretty cool that we see within hunting and archery, it's become this lifestyle where that's what we train for, because we know we may only have, it's just that important to us. It's a sport that's that important to us, and maybe a sport that gives us that much joy, but also how much respect we have for the animals to prepare. Anyways, so kind of got off a tangent there, but things that we can do to prevent injury within the draw cycle. So I see this all the time, and this is one thing that I really harp on as a physical therapist. So my background in biomechanics and kinesiology, the way that the body moves together, is really important, because you'll see people, particularly in the draw cycle, I'll say, when people become fatigued and that shoulder starts creeping up, kind of like you mentioned, or another one is just their form as they start shooting a lot more, or if they're shooting too much weight as well is another thing. Now what I'll see is particularly that shoulder creep far forward. So they're really trying to, reach forward like this and really try to muscle it back all with one arm. I'll really see form and injuries start to occur, form breakdown, injuries start to occur within that within that string arm, mainly within the bicep tendon as they start to draw and they just start really muscling it with that bicep tendon. You can see a lot of breakdown there. So that's one thing within the draw cycle that I really harp on. And when people come to me, like I try to put together a very specific, tailor-made, individualized program as far as like go through a whole biomechanical analysis and look at the way that they're drawing, put some lines on the screen, right? Have them send me videos so that we can make sure that we're drawing appropriately and shooting appropriately. But anyways, that's where I see a lot of it break down, is within that first part of the draw cycle as they're here and they're overbowed, or they're shooting too much weight, or whatever it is, or they're weaker, or they haven't been shooting for a long time. So
if your bicep gets sore when you're shooting, you're doing something wrong. Like, let me just throw that out there.
I'm gonna jump in here too really quick. Is archery shouldn't hurt. Like I say that all the time. Archery shouldn't hurt. If it hurts when you're shooting, like we got to correct that. We got to figure something out. Like you may be sore, but even then, like archery shouldn't hurt. You should be able to shoot arrows, and you should be able to shoot arrows until you're 86 years old. We're saying Harv's about 86. Sorry, Harv, if you're younger than that, but
I'm confident he's not going to listen to this podcast, so we're okay.
So whatever he is, archery shouldn't hurt. And so if it does, then we need to really fix that. But sorry, you're going to say something.
No, that's just what I was going at is if your bicep is getting sore and tired and painful during your shot, there's something wrong. And I don't remember, I think it was Tom, who was, I had sent him some videos of my shot process, and he talked about a high hook. And this is for a recurve, but it transitions over into a compound as well. A high hook. And what he means by that is transferring the weight over into your back, rather than, if you keep that wrist loosey goosey, you're going to be pulling it all with your bicep. But if you keep it tight, then you can really roll into your back, and you're pulling with your back rather than your bicep. And I've noticed a world of difference. I can shoot a lot longer. My back is a lot stronger than my biceps. Everybody's is, or should be. And so I just noticed a world of difference when I really started. And when you think about a muscle group, like when you think about pinch my shoulder blades together and draw with my back, it'll pretty much fix itself because you'll be focusing on those muscles and using those muscles rather than your bicep, and rather than your shoulder. So also one easy tip is just keep your bow down. And what I mean by that is not even in your shot process, but between arrows. When you're going to pull your arrows, you see guys all the time. They'll hold their bow up, for 20 seconds before they go to shoot. And, just hold your bow arm down between shots. Don't always hold it up and get ready and, hold it down by your side, rest the cam on your foot. Let your shoulders, let your body take a break between shots.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's interesting. So I do some work with the USA Archery team, both able-bodied and para teams. And it's pretty cool to see how much they shoot. I mean, these professional archers are shooting 200-300 arrows a day, usually for the majority, usually during the season, especially even preparing for it. And like, they shoot a lot. And so it's interesting to be on the team with them, watch them when I'm traveling with them, when they're resting. And they just are very in tune with that as far as when they need to rest, when they need to shoot, how much they need to shoot. And they just do it so much that, anyways, it's pretty cool.
I've got to shoot that many arrows a day just to stay mediocre.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Now, I've got to say this. I probably should have said this at the beginning. The premise of this episode is not train to hunt. I myself I was a lot more than I am now, but I used to make fun of those guys, the train to hunt guys, and I'm not going to name any names, but we can all think of somebody who runs a marathon a day, and I run 26 miles when I wake up and 34 before I go to bed, and I lift at 8, all to hunt. And I'm like, really? So you can't hunt unless you run a marathon a day? I hate the idea of you have to train to hunt. I don't like that idea, because some of the most successful hunters I know are fat old men. However, and we've all been on the mountain with somebody, and you look at them, you're like, how in the world are you going to get up the mountain? And then they're like trekking up the mountain fast as always with 50 pounds on their back, no problem. The difference is those guys do it full time. Like, so that is their training. They don't have to stay in shape because they live on the mountain. They live in that environment. They live, their guides are outfit. So they're doing that every day of the week. And that is their training. So I'm not saying you have to train to hunt, and that's not the premise behind this episode and behind this podcast, or even if I ever do build the program of Hunt Like Harv, that's not the premise of that idea. The idea is movements and a lifestyle that can keep me hunting full time. Now, will there be some weight training in that? Yes. Will there be some cardio in that? Yes. Will there be some stretches and movements in that? Yes. Will there be some I don't know what else, but will there be those types of things in that? Yes. But it's not go out and train as hard as you can or you can't hunt. That's not the premise of this. Somebody one time, I put out a video just of me working out, and somebody's like, oh yeah, trying to be Cameron Haynes. And I'm like, no, far from it. I don't care to be that at all. I just want to be able to hunt a long time. And I want to be not fat. I train to be not fat.
I think, yeah, you bring up a good point. And I've got nothing. I have, again, whether it's CrossFit, if that's what floats your boat, great. If it's running, a marathon a day, I have, no beef at all with Cameron Haynes. I think that's super impressive that he can do that. People who, anyways, I have no issue with that at all. I think it's very impressive. My whole premise, and I think what you're saying as well, is the idea is to be able to live a lifestyle and stay healthy so that you can hunt the remainder of your life. Now, whether that's Well, we know that's going to be some cardiovascular exercise, because just as we age and we decrease in muscle mass, we decrease in, our circulatory system and capacity decreases. And so aerobically, we need to do that. From a resistance standpoint, we need to lift weights because we lose a percentage of muscle mass, per decade. And so we have to lift weights. We have to resistance train. As we age, we get a little bit stiffer in our joints and in our muscles. And so we need to do some stretching. And so there's a lot of things. So I've got no beef with, if that's what floats your boat, if CrossFit is what it is, or if it's running every single day, a marathon or whatever, it's important that we recognize that lifestyle changes and just healthy living, what that includes is aerobic exercise, resistance training, some stretching, maybe some mobility work in there as well. But kind of just keeping that all together. And I think that's what's really key. That's what I find my passion with, is keeping people healthy, whether they're running a marathon a day or whether they're CrossFitters. I've worked with both of that type of athlete, I guess I'd say. And whatever it is, it's just fun to say, let's keep you healthy. And that's why, from my perspective, a physical therapy evaluation, or even like a yearly physical with a physical therapist who looks at your mechanics, the biomechanics, how things are moving, is super important. So I do a lot of virtual visits. I'd say the majority of my practice is virtual. I also see a lot of patients here in Salt Lake, and then travel to people's homes here in Salt Lake as well. And so anyways, there's options out there to really get that evaluation and let's make sure that things are looking good for this year. And then maybe next year your goals change. But anyways.
No, absolutely. I got to give a thank you to our friends over at Minus 33. I don't like to rave on products I don't truly believe in. I truly believe in merino wool. It's a game changer. If you've not ever tried merino wool, I would highly recommend you to do so. Even if you're a 90% whitetail hunter sitting in a tree stand, merino still serves a fantastic purpose. And I have found that Minus 33 does it, and does it really, really well. So if you're in the market for Minus 33, you can pick it up on some incredible sales on backcountry.com. But it's just a phenomenal base layer system. And even if you're not gonna try out Minus 33, I would highly recommend you try out merino wool. But merino wool and Minus 33 happen to be my favorite. I haven't worn anything but Minus 33 socks in about 2.5 years now. That sounds gimmicky, but it's true. I did a 60-day challenge of wearing nothing but Minus 33 socks. And that was for running, lifting, biking, church, whatever. No matter what I was doing, wearing socks, and I just found them to be so much better. And so I haven't worn anything since. So I would highly recommend you check out Minus 33 for all your merino wool needs. What are some everyday movements? Let's start with like some simple stretches, some simple, band exercises, but then even some lifts that we can do daily, weekly, every other day, to really keep all of that in check. Now, let me just start by saying this. Having a big, strong back is never a bad thing. I train my back twice a week, just because as an archer, that's what I want, is a big, strong back and healthy legs. I get asked guys a lot stronger than me, how do you hold back a 55-pound recurve like that? How do you shoot a bow like that heavy? Answer, train your back. A lot of pull-ups, a lot of pull downs, a lot of band pull aparts, train your back. Rear delt flies, you name it, train your back. Backs are never a bad thing, and they get neglected because they're not a pretty thing. They're not biceps, they're not abs. So they get neglected sometimes. Train your back is my tip. But what are some everyday specific movements that we can do to keep our archery in check?
Yeah, that's a good, I would agree that. So speaking on the back, if we want to jump into there, deadlifts, some of my favorites right there, throwing in some deadlifts, good weight. So that's one thing that I would recommend all the time. I recommend it to all my patients with back pain and people who are trying to prevent back pain, really, throw in some deadlifts. And you can do it as light as you want with a kettlebell. You can do it with dumbbells. You can do it with barbells, whatever. But so certainly some deadlifts. I'm going to, I guess, jump down into the legs as well. So some squats, even if it's just body weight squats, maybe hold a pack, hold a weight, hold a dumbbell, hold a kettlebell. Squats are really good. I would do that every single day as well, or at least 3 or 4 days a week, I guess. So deadlifts, squats. For me, I work with a lot of mountain hunters, I'm going to say, here in Salt Lake. And so I do a lot of step ups and then a lot of, I'll show you, see if I can show you, but lateral step ups. So stepping up sideways up the stairs, as well as going up the stairs normally, I would say. And what that does is it really trains your outer hip muscles. And so that's a good one. Those outer hip muscles, I'll say 100%, almost probably 95% of people that I test physically are weaker through those outer hip muscles. So that's your muscles. I'll stand up here a second. You see me there? So lifting your leg out to the side like that. So standing in one position, right? Lifting my leg out to the side with a resistance band, or even like call them, fire hydrants. So in this position, lifting your leg out to the side like that. A lot of single leg stuff is really good. So single leg balance, lifting your leg out to the side, that working that lateral hip muscles. Now, as far as archery goes, I have a YouTube video on this, but I think there's 5 exercises that I think are really good to maintain mobility and then also to just maintain strength. And so what I recommend, sitting back like this. So obviously one of them, bow pulls or bow pull aparts, right? So with a resistance band, all you need to do is just work on just that form as far as pulling. Again, I try to avoid people crossing midline because then that puts a lot of strain on their bicep tendons. So I just grab a resistance band and I do this. I brought this up to someone. They're like, should I do it on both sides? And absolutely do it on both sides, even though it's awkward. And I'm not necessarily drawing back maybe like I would, but all I'm doing it for is just to strengthen some muscles and get some blood flow, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to draw this way, but that's what I'm trying to do. So that's number 1. Number 2, working that posterior deltoid. So that back of your shoulder is just this. So just pulling apart this way and really trying to kind of expand, working those back muscles. You can do this with weights if you wanted and come out here to the side like this. So almost some like flies that way. And then number 3 exercise that I like is the one that I've already shown, but this external rotation. So if you grab a band and you do like, 10 to 15, if the band is strong enough, you should be like, man, I'm starting to really feel that. I'm starting to feel that burn or that fatigue. And that's really what you want, is that fatiguing feeling, that burning feeling. Again, if it's painful, we don't want that, and we will look at that. So let's see, that's 3, right? I did this one, pull apart, the rotation. One to kind of stretch my core, I'll say, and kind of get my back moving. You can see me right here still. I bring the band up into this position and then just rotate down. So just to kind of stretch through my back muscles. And then after that, I bring the band here and I bring all the way back. So just to get the mobility. Now this one you got to be really careful of, like if you've had shoulder injuries before or dislocations, you want to just be careful, and maybe you, instead of going all the way in a full circle, maybe you just come from there up to, 90 degree or up to, overhead motion. That would be fine. But those are a bunch of different exercises that I say, like, hands down, if people are just looking for something simple It's going to take 5 to 10 minutes. It can take as long as you wanted, how many reps you added, but a typical 1 to 2 sets of 10 to 15, it's going to take 5 minutes to go through all that. And that really keeps people's shoulders super healthy.
Yeah. What, another thing you mentioned step ups.
Yeah.
I get looked at like I'm insane in the membrane, because I'm big on just carries, just pick something up heavy and carry it, whether it be upstairs, whether it be step ups, whether it be just across the gym, whether it be, whatever else. But I get looked at like I'm crazy. And one guy even said, "Why do you do this?" And I just said, well, quite frankly, I'm a hunter. And if you've ever dragged out a deer, if you've ever packed out an elk, this is useful. And it keeps me mobile and ready for those times. And I think that's the biggest issue. And you alluded to it earlier, is people will kill themselves trying to get ready. But if we incorporate just a couple easy things twice a week or 3 times a week, then we don't have to kill ourselves trying to get ready. I knew a guy and he was going on an elk hunt, and he's like, dude, I got to get in shape. So he started CrossFit for the 2 months leading up to his hunt. Well, then he got on his hunt, and his ankles were hurting, his knees were hurting. He couldn't make up the mountain. He was fatiguing too quickly. And I'm like, dude, that's because you tried so hard to cram everything into 2 months. Yeah. You tried to shoot your bow 100 times a day. You tried to do CrossFit 4 times a week. You tried to lose 20 pounds in 2 months. And you crammed it all in one day. Just do a couple little things, each week, and you can stay more prepared. You can stay ready. Those muscles can stay lubricated. That's not the term you would use. I'm sure there's a medical term, but those can stay oiled up and greasy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that for sure, for our joints staying lubricated and stuff like that. As far as our muscles and everything, probably the correct amount of tone in them is probably the right word, as far as not too much where they're, overstressed, but not enough as well, where they're not building up that enough tensile strength. But anyways, so I'm just looking at my calendar right now. It's June 8th let's see. We have our deer and elk hunt starts here in Utah. This year it's August 20th. So that is, what's that? That's 8 weeks, June to July to August. We're like 9 weeks away almost, we'll say 9-10 weeks away from the opener of the elk and deer hunt here. And so now is 100% the time to, hopefully you've already been preparing, but I'll see a lot, and I'm going to kind of reiterate it on this podcast here. Like, start today, because you're going to be better prepared today if you start today versus tomorrow. Now, what we'll see is a lot of people don't start. They're busy. Summers get busy. They go on vacations. They, do all sorts of things, yard work. They don't start, and they don't start shooting until, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before that beginning of August. They're like, oh man, I need to start shooting. Now, I will say, I don't think we see that as much anymore. Most people that I see, I think, especially with these mountain archery fests, total archery challenges, there's a lot of, 3D events. People are training not year round, but we'll say more frequently, more often, earlier in the year as well, which is good. But if we have 10 weeks or 9 weeks until the hunt starts, like, get on a program right now. If you need help with that program, I'm happy to help. Otherwise, just start doing some of these motions that we're talking about.
Yeah, he's giving you stuff free.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all free. But in all reality, there is so much that you can do that doesn't cost you a dime. You don't have to have a big membership to a gym. You don't have to spend a whole bunch on supplements. You don't. I literally bought a used treadmill for $50 and it works perfectly. And I can put a pack on, and I can put 40 pounds in my pack, and I can walk on my treadmill for 30 minutes a day, and it doesn't cost a dime. I will also say, shooting doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be time consuming. It doesn't have to be, if there's a day where I don't get to go out and shoot, last night was a perfect example. I didn't get to go out and shoot yesterday. So got the kids tucked in bed. Good night. It was already dark. I went downstairs in my basement and shot at 10 yards. but I'm still again keeping all of those muscles being used. I'm still keeping them lubricated or greased up, as my redneck terminology would say. But then what happens is, if I go on a week-long vacation, I get home that first time shooting, I'm like, man, I only got 25 arrows in, and I'm gassed. My back hurts, my shoulders are sore. So I want to, even if it's 2 arrows, 5 arrows, 10 arrows, just even if it's drawing your bow back, you say, well, Dylan, that's nice. I don't have a basement to shoot in. Okay. Draw your bow back and hold it and then let it down. Draw your bow back and hold it and then let it down. Draw your bow back, hold it, let it down. You're still keeping everything fluid. You're still keeping everything ready. And when the time comes, you're not going to gas out. You're not going to be sore. I would just stay ready.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I'll say always, if you're going to draw your bow back, put an arrow in, just in case. But what I was going to say is people do it all the time in there. That's why the exercise bands are awesome. But I have about a 14 or 15 yard range in my basement that I shoot all the time. And in the wintertime, shooting all the time. And if you don't have that, you can easily just prop up I have a lot of patients that I work with, put their target on their kitchen table or their counter, and they're just literally just blank bailing right there as well. And that's something that you can do, that I definitely recommend. Like what you're saying is shooting, is getting those reps in, especially now we're, like I said, 9 weeks, 10 weeks from middle of August, where most hunting's going to start. It's time to really kind of start getting a lot of those reps in, get training. You don't need a lot of equipment. It is interesting that I thought what you brought up was interesting as far as, when you're hunting, you're picking up your heavy packs. Hopefully you're successful and you're picking up the rack and you're taking cool pictures, but then also, breaking down that animal. That's when you really find like strong backs are super important, especially like if you're breaking down an elk and you're on the ground and you're just bent over for hours at a time trying to, cut it up, and then you're grabbing the quarters. Now, what got me thinking about this is I'm like, is lifting up animals and things like that, it's probably a form of some sort of CrossFit, really. I'm going to dive back into that.
Oh, no.
I know. So you're doing, no, I'm just joking. I kind of wanted to joke there, but
I don't lift dead animals up much. I'm not doing much CrossFit.
We have animals. We have horses and mules and stuff. I guess we have mules, but picking up those quarters and putting them up into the panniers. And so a lot of those lifts, right, you can see me kind of, picking things up from the ground, picking things up and lifting them overhead. Now you can do this with your backpack just filled with some rice or filled with, I guess, some salt for your saltwater softener or whatever it is, sand. But simple things like that you can do at home, and you can do a lot of really good stuff, and it doesn't take a lot of equipment.
Absolutely. No, I posted a picture one time, and it was me doing some deadlifts, and then it was me pulling a deer up into the bed of my truck. Same exact movement, same exact everything. And somebody asked me one time, they said, why do you practice heavy deadlifts? I enjoy lifting heavy deadlifts. And I said, well, have you ever tried to pick a deer up in the back of your truck? And they like kind of snickered like I was joking. I'm like, I'm being dead serious, man. You get out in the woods by yourself, getting a deer in the bed of your truck is hard. And so that's literally why I do it, so I can get deer in the bed of my truck. The ultimate deadlift is a dead animal. So what's your number one, your hunting 101, your tip of the day? Do this to stay in shape for hunting.
Since we're on this podcast about archery, I'm going to say shoot your bow, really. I don't think there's anything that substitutes other than just getting those reps in.
It's not revolutionary. It's not. I mean, listen, somebody one time asked Michael Jordan, how do I get better at jumping? And he literally said, jump more.
Yeah.
If you want to get better at shooting, shoot more. If you want to be able to shoot longer and harder and well into your 80s, shoot more. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've covered the other stuff, things that you can do, but if you You want to keep your shoulders healthy, your back healthy, just shoot. And
Absolutely.
I said, yeah, we're 10 weeks out, 9 weeks out. You got to be shooting right now. You should.
Absolutely, you do.
That has an archery tag in their pocket should be shooting today.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely, you should. And again, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be for 2 hours out back. It doesn't have to be at 90 yards. It doesn't have to be just shoot your bow. Before we go, shout out to our friends over at Wise Eye Technology. If you are a user of trail cameras, which most people are these days, I would highly recommend you to check out Wise Eye. They are, in my opinion, the smartest trail camera on planet Earth. I can log in and it will graph out the deer based off of moon phases, weather, when they're coming in. I can look at everything on a chart, and I can really begin scouting long before boots on the ground, because I can see these deer when they're coming in based off of different things. Like I said, moon, wind, rain, so on and so forth. But it also has game recognition technology, so I don't have to look through thousands of pictures of does, coons, coyotes. I get to see the bucks I want to see, and they're divided out into folders. So if I name a deer the Big 10, I can go in and look at all the pictures of him when he's coming in, and again, look at him on that graph. So I'd highly recommend you to check out Wise Eye Technology for, in my opinion, the smartest trail camera you can buy. Dr. Preston Ward, where can they find Mountain Physio at?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Mountain Physio, MTNPHYSIO.com. So mountainphysio.com. You can schedule appointments, schedule free trial visits and everything like that. Instagram, I think my Instagram handle is mountain_physio, MTN_PHYSIO. So that's where I'm most active. I've got my YouTube channel, same thing, Mountain Physio, that I post up regular videos and instruction exercises, different programs, what to do, what not to do, and how to prepare. But yeah, the best thing, probably my website, that Instagram, YouTube, they can reach out to me. My contact's on there. They can call me, text me, email me, whatever I can do to help people get ready and really get hunt ready, get mountain ready, whatever it is. Just make sure that we're getting people shooting and, preventing injuries, rehabbing their injuries right, and then also shooting for the remainder of their life till their age of Harv.
Also, the baddest apparel on planet Earth. just throwing that out there. The barbell and elk antler absolutely kill it for me. I love that, dude. It's incredible. So go check out Dr. Preston Ward, Mountain Physio. Stay tuned, because I don't know if it's going to be this year. I don't know if it'll be this month, but I do want to develop something for Hunt Like Harv, mainly, to commemorate him, to do something in honor of him, but also so I can stay ready, you can stay ready. But guys, get out and shoot your bow, get ready, stay ready. Y'all have a good season. As always, if you're successful this fall, shoot me over your pictures. I'd love to see them. Guys, thanks for listening. You guys have a great week.